WNBA, you're dead.
Damn.
The WNBA pretty much blew its opportunity this year, and tonight, when Caitlin Clark announced that she was not returning this season, I'm just sitting here shaking my head like they blew their opportunity. They had one shot. You talk about a fumble. This will go down as one of the greatest fumbles in sports history. They had a chance to elevate.
WNBA, you're dead. Those words landed like a thunderbolt, not because they came from a random social media account, not because they came from an angry fan. Those words came during a moment when the entire basketball world was beginning to ask a question nobody inside the league wanted to hear. What happens when Caitlin Clark disappears? For more than a year, Caitlin Clark wasn't simply a rookie. Caitlin Clark wasn't simply a star. Caitlin Clark became the center of the entire conversation surrounding women's basketball. Television ratings exploded. Arena attendance surged. Sports debate shows suddenly found themselves discussing WNBA storylines at the top of their broadcasts. Every road game featuring Caitlin Clark felt like a national event. Then everything changed. As Caitlin Clark disappeared from the floor, something else started disappearing too. The constant national coverage, the daily debate segments, the endless social media clips, the mainstream sports attention that had become routine suddenly seemed harder to find. That's why comments from Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock created such a massive reaction. Their criticism wasn't merely directed at a single injury update. Their criticism was aimed at the league's handling of the biggest star it had seen in decades. The argument being made was simple. If Caitlin Clark was the engine driving unprecedented growth, why did so many moments throughout the season feel like the league was fighting against its own momentum? Now the discussion is no longer about a single player. It's about whether the WNBA misunderstood the scale of what Caitlin Clark represented. And if that's true, the consequences could stretch far beyond one season.
You notice I didn't talk about it this year? Yeah. It's not because I suddenly disliked the league. I thought it was growing. Anybody that wants to argue this, you're off your rocker. Caitlin Clark is the league.
Ooh! Stir the pot, Colin. Stir the pot. You cooking right now. You are cooking. You keeping it extra real.
I don't know what the ratings are. I haven't read them, but I know last year with Caitlin Clark, I would, if the game was on, I would drive home making a point. And when's that game on?
That statement from Colin Cowherd may have been the most revealing moment in the entire discussion. Colin Cowherd wasn't arguing that the WNBA lacks talented players. He wasn't arguing that stars such as Angel Reese, Ajay Wilson, Paige Buchers, or others cannot contribute to the growth of the league. His point was much more direct. Caitlin Clark changes behavior. That distinction matters. Sports leagues are filled with talented athletes, but very few athletes actually change viewing habits. Very few athletes cause casual fans to rearrange their schedules. Very few athletes make people stop what they're doing and search for game times. According to Colin Cowherd, Caitlin Clark was creating exactly that kind of behavior. When Caitlin Clark played, sports fans who normally ignored the WNBA suddenly paid attention. When Caitlin Clark played, major sports shows discussed highlights. When Caitlin Clark played, debates emerged across television, radio, podcasts, and social media. That level of attention is rare. Historically, sports leagues experience explosive growth when a transformational figure arrives. The NBA had Michael Jordan. Golf had Tiger Woods. The UFC had Conor McGregor. The NBA later experienced another surge through LeBron James. The common denominator wasn't simply talent, it was cultural relevance. Caitlin Clark became culturally relevant at a scale few expected. That's why Colin Cowherd's comparison carried so much weight. He wasn't describing a good player. He was describing a player who moved the entire conversation. Once Caitlin Clark left the lineup, the league faced a brutal reality. Attention is difficult to earn and even harder to keep. The moment national media stopped leading with Caitlin Clark stories, many observers began noticing how quickly the spotlight shifted elsewhere. That isn't necessarily an indictment of the league, but it does reveal how much of the momentum was connected directly to Caitlin Clark. And that's exactly why the criticism became so intense.
It's as simple as that, man. It is as simple as that. Like, y'all have to accept the facts. The facts is she's the draw. She's the draw, and y'all did so much to hate. Y'all knocking her down all crazy, full court. I mean, it just got crazy. All the flagrant fouls, most flagrantly foul player in the league. I mean, it's just nasty. Kathy Engelberg, this is one of the biggest fumbles that we have seen. I mean,
it's as simple as that. The biggest issue wasn't merely that Caitlin Clark got hurt. The biggest issue was the perception that Caitlin Clark had been absorbing extraordinary levels of physical attention long before the injury. Whether fans agreed or disagreed with that narrative didn't matter. The perception spread everywhere. Every hard foul involving Caitlin Clark generated headlines. Every confrontation involving Caitlin Clark generated debate. Every controversial officiating moment involving Caitlin Clark became viral content. As weeks passed, many fans began feeling that Caitlin Clark was operating under a microscope, unlike anything seen in recent WNBA history. That created a dangerous situation. Because once fans believe a league isn't protecting its biggest star, every future incident becomes magnified. Every whistle becomes controversial. Every collision becomes suspicious. Every injury update becomes a source of speculation. The league then finds itself fighting two battles simultaneously: the actual basketball battle and the public relations battle. History shows that superstar-driven leagues often go out of their way to protect momentum generated by transformational players. Not because those players deserve special treatment, but because the health of the league becomes connected to the health of the star. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, she brought millions of new eyes. Many of those viewers weren't longtime WNBA fans. They were Caitlin Clark fans first. That distinction matters. When a league gains fans through one superstar, those fans often evaluate every situation through the lens of that superstar. As criticism intensified, the conversation shifted away from basketball and toward trust. Trust in officiating, trust in league leadership, trust in communication. And once trust becomes the central topic, every decision gets scrutinized at an entirely different level. That's where the controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark became much larger than any single game. It became a debate about the league's entire direction.
A group of unlikable people. I don't care if they have any success. I like a handful of the Indiana Fever players. That's it. But I've lost interest in that. I'm done. I'm out. No reason to watch the rest of this season. No real reason to return next season.
Damn. All right, y'all heard it yourselves. Y'all heard it yourselves. People are checked out on the WNBA with how shady things.
Giant group of unlikable people. By the time Colin Whitlock delivered his strongest criticism, the discussion had moved beyond ratings, injuries, and officiating. Now the discussion was about consumer interest. That's the area every professional sports league fears most. Fans can be angry and still watch. Fans can complain and still buy tickets. Fans can criticize and still tune in. But when fans become indifferent, that's a completely different challenge. Colin Whitlock's argument centered on the idea that disappointment had replaced excitement. Whether people agree with him or not, that perception is what makes the story significant, because sports leagues survive on emotional investment. The WNBA entered the season with unprecedented momentum. National media attention reached levels that would have been difficult to imagine just a few years earlier. Corporate partnerships expanded. Television numbers climbed. Arena demand increased. The opportunity was enormous. The criticism from Colin Cowherd and Colin Whitlock essentially argues that the league failed to maximize that opportunity. If that perception continues growing, the financial implications become serious. Television partners care about ratings. Sponsors care about visibility. Advertisers care about engagement. Teams care about attendance. Everything flows from audience interest. And that's why Caitlin Clark remains at the center of the conversation, not because she's the only talented player, not because she's the only star, but because Caitlin Clark appears to have become the player most capable of connecting the league to mainstream sports culture. If that connection weakens, the league faces difficult questions. How much growth was league-driven, and how much growth was Caitlin Clark-driven? The answer to that question may shape the next decade of WNBA strategy.